History Talk with Smith Co. Hello and welcome to History Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the implications of the impact of the 1916 Rising, what happened afterwards. So on the 30th of April, which is a Sunday, peace has come back to Dublin. It's 450 people, around 3 of them are innocent civilians, are dead. 2,614 are wounded. So damage is estimated to be around 2 million. The property in the centre of the city is a smoking ruin. So
you might have to download
immediate realization something's going on. But what about the rest of Ireland? Because the rest of Ireland, you don't have this. Obviously you do some skirmishes in some areas in the west and other areas like that, but you don't have anything like Dublin. So what happens when people hear about Dublin? See, when the word first comes, the rising, when it comes and reaches them, they're kind of bewildered. They don't know what's going on. They don't sanction this. They don't agree with this. So, people in Dublin gathered to watch the fighting and to swap rumours. Outside Dublin, information was even scarcer because you don't have any trains running at this time. The GPO shut, post can't be delivered, and the offices of the Irish Independent, the country's biggest newspaper, are destroyed in the fighting, which is a bit strange because the only other paper that's available is the Union newspaper, the Irish Times. Now, the problem with this, of course, is that obviously it's going to have a little one-sided anyway. We're not going to be able to trust it, and that's no offense to unions, by the way. I'm just saying that would be the same way with the national papers. If it was the unions, there wouldn't be much of that. You can't trust. There's one thing, first of all, in the modern day, you can't trust news sources anyway, because, they're a bit dodgy. Not all news sources, some news sources are reliable, but just be aware of where they're getting their news from. But at this point, it's well, it's not just, I'm not saying you can't trust this news source all the time. It's just that if you tell a news source, you're the only news source. There's nobody else to contradict you, not one other news source. Then they'll obviously be tempted to, have a little bit of a skin to the truth, because obviously that's what's going to happen. Because if you're being told you can basically make things up and nobody else will be saying anything, there'll be no other newspapers. It's a bit like just censorship of everybody else. It's not a good idea having only one news source, because unless all the news sources are dodgy. But there's all these other things. You just want to have, multiple reliable news sources that come from different areas, just to make sure if one news source begins to be lying, you can just, say, well, no, I can go elsewhere. I don't have to rely on you for my news. So one thing, of course, is the military censorship prevents it from actually saying much. So the Irish Times is not really able to, talk about it really that much. So with no certain news, the country is unaware of what's happening. Some think it's a German invasion, others think it's an actually socialist revolution led by Larkin, and others label it the Sinn Féiners. Now, obviously, Sinn Féin itself is a party; it's not involved in this at all, But this name begins to get connected to them, and this is something which, down the line, will be very important. But no one knows for certain. Even when the fighting ends, hard, information is very, very hard to get. So, it takes about a week or two for the clearer picture to emerge. So, the response to this is varied. Unionists are rising as a treacherous attack on the Empire and Hour of Need, and they're against it. Obviously, Now, nationalist feelings were mixed. Some were angry at the death and destruction because, it hasn't achieved anything. That's 300 deaths. These are 300 deaths of people who aren't even related to this. destruction of 2 million. And this is like, doing it this in the modern day is a colossal amount of money, you know? And, you know, insurance not likely paying out for this. There's all this sort of situation to have here. So, as the volunteer prisoners are being marched through Dublin, people actually throw mud at them and all sorts of things. They're not treated very well by the public. However, others were more willing to look at this in an interesting way. They disliked the violence, but they were going to listen to the fact that the rebels had actually held out for a week. They held out for a week. Interesting. And, you know, I thought, well, kind of foolish. He didn't do, you know, kind of guerrilla tactics or, you know, that kind of, you know, hit and run and all those other things. But, you know, yeah, it's some might say brave. Although brave, stupid, they just kind of polar opposites. Well, yeah. But then you have the Home Rule Party. The Home Rule Party is still under this kind of an issue, which is it's achieved its aim, but it also hasn't. And this is a terrible blow to Richmond, Dillon, and the Home Rule Party. This appears to have just undone everything they worked for. Now, Richmond was in London on the Tuesday of the Easter week when he rose in Parliament to denounce the rising as a German plot. But Dillon was in Dublin all through the rising, and he was much more in touch with nationalist feelings. On Sunday, as the last rebel surrendered, he wrote to Redmond in warning. This warning was actually a fairly, you know, it was actually a smart enough thing to do. And it was stated as this: "You should urge strongly on the government the extreme unwisdom of the wholesale shooting of prisoners. The wisest course is to execute no one for the present. So far, the feeling of the population of Dublin is against the Sinn Féiners, but a reaction might very easily be created." Basically, what he's saying there is that this is the situation in which people don't like what these have done. They have not done this with a majority of support, and technically, what they've just said is, "Oh, we're the head of a parliament that's separate from England. We have our independence, but we're not elected." It's a bit dodgy in numerous ways. So there's not much support for it really at all. And, you know, it's not really, you know, they're if you just leave them in prison, no one's probably going to care. But if you shoot them, that'll change things very much so. Because suddenly it's, you shot them? But Britain, you were the ones who fired the shells, you know? They may have been the ones who instigated the violence. They may be the ones who captured the buildings. But you were the ones who brought in a gunboat into, you know, Dublin and fired shells at O'Connell Street, you know? So it seems like, you know, you might be slightly responsible when it comes to these things. So maybe, you know, just don't be going, "Oh, now we're going to just execute these people." You're executing them now. But you also killed people. There's crossfire, but it works both ways. You can't just go, "Oh, one side is wrong." No, both sides are in the wrong. In this situation, anyway. You know? However, when Redmond gives this message to Asquith, it is not well received. He is deeply involved in a dangerous war, and the British saw the rising as a German-inspired stab in the back. They were in no mood to consider Irish feelings, which was very, very foolish. If you want an empire, not considering the feelings of the people you're controlling can cause problems down the line. Now, as I've said this before, and probably if you're a freaking viewer here, you're going to be bored by this. My point is this: you can have an empire, and you might even be able to keep that empire, but your people there may die because of your just uncaringness of what the people you're controlling, you know, have to suffer under. Because if people go, "Okay, so we want to rise against these people," now we can't. Now what happens is groups then kill people in positions like army officers, people who work for the British government, and all these other things. This is the kind of people who die, and obviously, that's that's not really necessarily gonna get the English out of your country, but it is going to kill a good for people who work for the English. And the point is that you are essentially saying, don't care. And this is the point. By ignoring these other feelings, it's a very foolish idea. But then they come in with an even more foolish idea, which is let the fella who runs the martial law have a free hand and do anything he feels necessary. So his name is General Maxwell. And obviously, giving a man a free hand to do all this, that's not a good idea. And that's what we'll be talking about in the next video. What exactly did they do? What happened in the situation? Please do join us then. If not, we have loads of other videos available, and you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. All of that helps a great bunch. Anyway, thank you for listening. And if not, you're not coming back next time or anything like that, well, I guess, goodbye forever then, and enjoy the rest of your existence.